Anirban sir, good morning.
Hello.
Good
Good morning, sir.
morning.
Good morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Anirban. Good morning. Our speaker
Namaste.
is here. Yeah, Mr. Rahul, let us wait for just 3-4 minutes because it is 10:58. We shall wait for 10, 11 up to 2 minutes, and then we shall start the program. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
हाँ सर ज्वाइन करो. Mr. Anirban. Mr. Anirban, what is time in USA at present? Please unmute yourself.
Right. Namaste, Professor Singhal.
What is time in USA at present?
It's 10:30. It's 10:28.
10:28 p.m.
Sir, shall we start?
Sure, please start the program, Mr.
Okay.
Rahul.
Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Rahul Dubey, Assistant Professor in MITS and a member of IIT, Bhopal IIT. And our expert, Mr. Anirban, has joined us recently. So I would like to invite Dr. Pooja Sahu, ma'am, to introduce our expert, our speaker to all the audience. Over to Pooja Sahu, ma'am.
Thank you, Rahul sir, for inviting me. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are perfectly audible, madam. Yes.
Thank you, sir. First, a very good morning, all. I, Pooja Sahu, Assistant Professor, MITS Gwalior. Welcome you all on the behalf of IIT Bhopal Center, IAI India, and IEEE MP subsection. As you all know, the today topic of the event is Introduction to Cloud Migration and Job Opportunities. And expert is Mr. Anirban Kundu. So let's me introduce first, sir. Mr. Anirban Kundu, working as a manager, product management at Guidewire Software, San Francisco Bay Area, USA. Sir did BE in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from Vishwesvaraya Technology University and MBA from University of California, Davis. Sir worked as assistant system engineer in TCS from 2004 to 2007 and developed web applications. In 2007 to 2011, Sir joined Deloitte Consultancy as a specialist senior. In 2011 to 2013, Sir worked as a senior software engineer in RMS. Also, from 2013 to 2016, worked as staff architect in San Francisco and lead the product life cycle management strategies. In 2016, Sir joined GE Digital as a technical product manager and lead the integration of $153 acquisitions of Bitsway Inc. So now I request our expert to provide the knowledge in a faucet title. Sir, please, I welcome you.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Pooja, for that wonderful introduction. So just as Ms. Pooja said, I've been in this industry for over 15 plus years. Started my career as a developer, now currently working as a product manager in Guideware. Especially my primary role is, developing the Guideware cloud platform. Basically, it's again a cloud platform which is meant for the insurance industry. That's what Guideware does. Actually, it's a public company registered in US, and we have around 400 plus customers spread across the world. Most of our customers are in the US, and like 75% of tier one companies, especially in the insurance industry, use Guideware software. So as Professor Singhal had said to me, to kind of provide a brief overview about cloud migration and the current job opportunities, given that I have experience in developing cloud and cloud-based products at scale in various organizations. Let me share my screen. Share your entire screen.
In the bottom, there is one arrow sign, Mr. Kundu. Please see.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, on that arrow, please click.
Are you able to see my slide?
Just it is opening. Now, yes. Yeah, it is opening. Yes.
Which I think it's going in the this way.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, fully visible, sir.
Okay.
Fine.
Thank you. All right. So, this whole cloud migration is a huge topic. And then, covering it in 45 minutes, I just wanted to give you a very, high level or a meta level view so that you understand, what cloud is, and then, what some of those strategies that different companies have taken. I'll give you some, practical examples, like, Salesforce, ServiceNow, how, as well as Netflix also, right? How they have, migrated to cloud, and what are the business drivers, these companies have seen to do such migrations. And then last but not the least, like, what are the opportunities? Like, how big is the market? What are the technologies like the students should learn so that they get into this industry? Okay. And before we start, and like, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt. I don't know the level of understanding of all the people in this call, their understanding. So if I'm going too high level or too deep, please stop me, ask the questions. It's best that if we can, go in a collaborative way, like asking questions and all would be good for all. So just a quick thought while I was doing this presentation. How many of us have seen these kind of pictures maybe in colleges or in some of the organizations that you have visited? I mean, these days, maybe some of the colleges still have their IT room. This is nothing but the image of an IT room where you'll have the server room where entry is restricted, as well as it's a high superpower, AC is there, and all the servers are running, and mostly those servers are running your applications, your database, then as well as your network security components like your firewall, your networking, other infrastructures. So this we used to see, at least I have seen, like I started my career in 2005, back there in TCS as well as in Deloitte, we used to have such server rooms. These days, now if you go to some of these the same companies, you'll see that these rooms are gone, right? Why? Because everything is in the cloud, right? I mean, this is just a picture I found very interesting, that cloud, is it really in the cloud? Or, you are using, huge amount of, compute space and storage rented by someone, and who is ensuring that they will give you those, rented infrastructure on a continuous basis in a secure and safe manner. That's what that, cloud is. And basically, like cloud, like any applications which are running, say right now, in our day-to-day life, we use Gmail, say, as well as, some of the social networking sites like LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, Gmail, right? Do you know where those, applications are running? How are they running? All you care about is, whether you're getting the service, whether you are able to, write a mail, send a mail as quickly as possible. And you also expect that whenever you open that URL, right, gmail.com or facebook.com, it opens up and you're able to see what you need to see, right? So that's what, cloud is. You don't know where it is running, but it is affecting, multiple users, and multiple users, they could be in billions, right? Like Facebook has that, receives every day billions of calls, and they're able to, successfully.
Mr. Anirban, may I interrupt a little bit?
Sure.
Few of the participants requesting to speak loudly because they are getting low audio. Okay, please.
Okay. Actually, I'm speaking loudly, but
Uh,
is that better?
yeah, it is better now. Now it is okay. Okay, fine. Please continue.
Okay.
Please continue. Okay.
Right. So cloud is basically, in short, a huge aggregation of your infrastructure resources, which has been used by multiple players, mostly, medium to small scale players, and they are able to, meet their business requirements at a faster pace, right? So from that IT room, right, where your application or your database was running, suddenly it is moved somewhere else, maybe in a desert. I just wanted to show this picture of, a data center of Apple, which is running in midst of Arizona, right? Where Apple is providing their users, continuous supply of their services, right? Uh, and they are maintaining the complete infrastructure, right, through various investments, because you can see on your left hand side how big the site is, and there are millions of racks which are hosted in this particular area, and which is providing, service to their end users. And on the right hand side, I wanted to show you the magnitude of the scale, like right from that room to couple of few racks. Now there are, hundreds and thousands of racks which are running continuously 24/7 and giving services to us, right? So that's what cloud is basically bringing in. And what it does is that, as you see, right, from a small scale to a large scale, right? So obviously, when you're talking about this much of scale, it requires a lot of investments, right? So if somebody is providing this cloud service, right, they have done, billions of investments to provide this kind of infrastructure to their customers. So basically, some of the key service providers like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Alibaba, IBM Cloud, Salesforce, Oracle, what they have done is that they have created the infrastructure, and then they are renting it out to other players so that they can use that infrastructure and then meet their business needs at a faster pace. Any questions on this?
Anirban, I have a question.
Sure.
that, as you said, that ASW is 32% and Google Cloud 9%. So is it the market share or this percentage is representing what is representing?
Yes. So basically, in this particular slide, what I want to also talk about is, this is the market share. Like, few key players have emerged and who is providing this, infrastructure to their customers. And this particular slide talks about, what is the market share. Like, few big players like Amazon, then Azure is from Microsoft, Google Cloud is from Google, Alibaba is again a Chinese-based company who is providing, this infrastructure services, and this is the market share of the various cloud providers in this particular industry.
Sorry, there is a one little bit more doubt. This percentage is representing the amount invested or the storage capacity.
This is the market investment within for Q1 2021. So if you see the worldwide market share of leading cloud service provider has been, whatever the investment currently, this cloud infrastructure service revenue stands at a $39 billion, and currently AWS takes about 32%, whereas Microsoft is at 20% and Google is at 9%, so forth and so on.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Just a minute. I request all the participants, students, and all the participants, if they have any question, please interrupt and ask the question immediately, or any type of question, basic questions, or whatever type of question you have in your mind. Our honorable speaker will not mind, and he will be happy to answer your question, because the basic purpose of this webinar is that to get the basic information about the cloud and cloud migration, and particularly what is going on in USA, and so it will be beneficial for everybody. Please continue, please.
Good evening, sir. Good morning, sir. So can I ask a question? So please
Sure.
go to the previous slide.
First of all, you introduce yourself and then.
Yes, sir. Sir, I am Vishali Dubey from MIT's third year, Electronics and Telecommunication. Okay. So my question is that here it is written that it is Q1, like quarter 1 of 2021. So it may differ from quarters.
So right now, the total cloud investment or the service revenue till Q1 2021, financial year Q1 2021 has been 39 billion. So, and it is growing like at 37% year over year. If you can see the numbers which I've put.
Okay, sir.
So out of these, when we are talking about from one single room to a data center, so you need a lot of investments. So not everybody can do that investment and provide you that infrastructure capability in click of a second. So that needs huge amount of investment, and then the key service providers who are providing that services, key services, the leading one is Amazon Web Services. That's what I mean, and right now they have captured around 32% of that market.
Yeah, one more announcement I have. If any participant is having question in Hindi also, he will be able to answer the question in Hindi also. Please.
Absolutely. मैं हिंदी में भी answer कर सकता हूँ.
Thank you.
So please feel free to ask the questions. So if we do not have any further questions, right? So let me talk about some of the business drivers. Like say a company like say Aviva or say New York Insurance, right? आपने सुना होगा इन सारे insurance companies के बारे में. I'm just taking one example on a particular domain where I'm working right now, right? So their main their key value proposition lies in providing insurance, right? They are providing insurance, multiple insurance, healthcare insurance, property insurance, but they are not good in maintaining their software or maintaining their infrastructure. They might be having those IT rooms, but are they good at it? No, right? Because their key or the key business is insurance. So why not, right, move or give to someone who can provide me, n number of hardware or unlimited hardware at scale, at a lower cost, at any point I want, right? So that's the business driver for a company, say like Aviva, or say any insurance player, even say, I don't know about, in India, there is LIC, they would want to go to the cloud. So just imagine to bring a rack, right? A rack of server. So first, a company has to, order from companies like, HP or Dell or IBM, and it takes, time to get those servers. And then not only that, once those racks come, you need to have the proper software installed in it. Then you need to install security. Then also you need to ensure that the whatever software you installed on those racks, they are upgraded. So there is an operational cost. As soon as you move on to the cloud, you're giving the responsibility to someone else. But that someone else is ensuring that even though you're not owning the infrastructure, they will ensure that your applications, your data is safe and secure. Then why not go there? So one of the key business driver is, the operational cost. You have to maintain, few IT folks who will, do those maintenance. And instead, you go to the cloud and say to someone else, hey, maintain this for me. So then why won't a company invest in that? Okay. Second, another business driver is the workforce productivity. I can take a real life example. Back in GE Digital, around 6 years back, I used to be a developer also. So just to get a database server, I had to raise a ticket, and then that ticket will go to the IT admin. They will at least take 2 to 3 weeks to give me a database server. So just imagine in those 2 to 3 weeks, I'm doing nothing but waiting for that that database server to come, right? So workforce productivity is another key business driver for moving to the cloud. Why? Because now if I want a database to run, right, to run my applications, or rather store the data for my applications, it's mostly click of a few buttons. Either I go to in Amazon Web Services, or in Azure through Microsoft, or through Google Cloud. It's mostly click of 3 or 4 buttons, and then swiping that card. But they are ensuring that they are giving that service at a lower cost. And how they are able to offer you at a lower cost, because they are following the economies of scale. Because when you multiply that few dollars with a huge number, say million, then that's how they're able to make their own business, right? The third driver is again the cost avoidance. Right from logistics part, if you order your hardware and then hire that capability within the organization, you're giving that responsibility to someone else. So companies like say Guideware also, where we are providing insurance software to our customers like Aviva or American Family, we are leveraging cloud service provider like AWS to help our businesses meet our customers' need. Okay. Another thing is that, say, operational resilience. So what does that mean? Say you take somebody's data, right, and then you have to ensure whatever happens, right, be there is a hack or suddenly your servers are down, you need to give service 24/7 to your customers. In these days, right? We are living in an era of technology and all. So giving that 24/7 service is quintessential, right? And if you have to develop that capability that you need to, back up your application, back up your data, it's again a huge challenge for any organization whose key business is not IT, right? Just to give you a level of magnitude, so AWS, who is again a cloud service provider, spans across 25 geographic regions, and they have 81 availability zone. Like, what is an availability zone is like, say, this whole earth is divided into, say, 25 regions, right? And then within region, you have availability zone. Availability zone is nothing but that data center, which I showed, in my second picture, somewhere in Arizona, Apple is running. Similarly, somewhere in Arizona or somewhere in India also, AWS is running their, data centers, and they are continuously, replicating the data such that any kind of, kind of calamity happens or any problem happens or there is a hack, you will be able to shift from one zone to another zone, from one region to another region, such that your business users are not affected at any point of time. The last point is the business agility. Today we are, living in a very fast-paced world, right? I mean, you can see how companies, value speed. Whatever, say Facebook, they're releasing their softwares every day, I would say, and you don't know, right? I mean, as a user, you don't know. And say companies like us, like Guideware cloud platform, is been released every 2 weeks. Upgrades are happening, new security functionalities are being pushed in, which is giving the organization the speed, because speed is what matters these days. If you're not able to catch up with your competitors, you lose your business, you lose your customers, right? So that's what, cloud is, bringing you, or rather, these are the key business drivers which are forcing some of, the big organizations to move from on-prem to the cloud. Now, just to show you some numbers, what are the business drivers and what are the, the value that cloud has, brought in, mostly from a cost-saving perspective, like you buy your own rack, instead you rent it out to someone else. The total saving is out of, say, if what is the total value? If the value is 100, 8% you only get from, saving your dollar value, just from the infrastructure perspective. But where is the key value? If you can see over here, 32% is the staff productivity. As I said, right, back in 6-7 years back, just to get a database server, I had to wait for 2 to 3 weeks. Now I can get instantly. Now just imagine, in this whole IT world, how many developers are there and how many of them are, requesting for such a database server or any server, maybe a VM, a virtual machine, right? And they had that whole thing is reduced to 10 to 15 minutes. So that's the value, or that's the business driver where which is pushing the organizations to move from, on-prem to the cloud. Okay. If you don't have any question, just take this example, right? I mean, you guys are all students, and I hope you have developed some bit of, application on your side, right? So any application, right? will have generally, a dynamic application, I would say, will have a UI layer, where you have your JavaScript, where you're showing in the browser, right, all your HTML controls and all. So you have a UI layer. Then you have a backend layer, say, where you're doing your business processing, right? All your requests are coming from the UI, you're processing, you're validating that, right? Whether that request is coming from a secured source, right? And then, you have a database layer where you have saved your, data for your customers, right? Say an example. I'll just take an example, say, of Facebook, and then I'll just high level, right? Say Facebook has this, wonderful UI. What you see whenever you open up your browser or you are accessing it from a mobile phone, that is what the UI layer. Then say the business layer, yeah, they might have thousands of, business, thousands of services, but just think it as at a meta level that some backend service is running, right? Only, you are authenticated to kind of see that data, that is, say, that business layer. And then finally your database layer, you have the information of that particular user and that particular, user's friends, whom are they able to, who are, or rather, when can they post their pictures, and also those information, that data to that customer or to you is stored within the database, right? So this is a standard 3-tier architecture, right? Why I say is that this is very important. Like we talked about business, drivers from moving from your on-prem infrastructure to the cloud. But what are the key strategies that you should take for a 3-tier application to move from on-prem onto the cloud? Okay, so first strategy is, lift and shift. What does it mean is that, even guideware companies like Guideware, Salesforce, ServiceNow, what they used to have was a piece of software, right? And they will go and deploy it in customers' rack, right? And then customer will use that software. Salesforce or Guideware or ServiceNow will provide them the necessary upgrades. Somebody will go and deploy that application in customers' infrastructure. Now, what we are saying now, from on-prem to the cloud, we are saying that we take that that application, right, and we just move it from on-prem infrastructure to the cloud. Maybe you can take some virtual machines, right? Then you also within that virtual machine, you can set up your database server, your application server, and then you deploy your applications. That is also a part of cloud migration. That is basically, from 2008 to 2012, 13. That's what a lot of companies did, actually, moving from on-prem to the cloud. But it was just lift and shift. Lift and shift means AWS, as a managed service provider, gave you the infrastructure, and you just ran your software there. Is there a question? I see here some disturbance coming.
No, please continue. There is no question. Please continue. Yeah.
Okay. So this is one strategy which.
Excuse me, Anirban, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Look, actually, the thing is that somebody is in the webinar who is not very technically sound regarding all this. So as a joiner, fresh joiner, you could also simplify it for the general people like me. So what is all about you are talking and this, so thing would be a little clear for us. So since you have invited in this webinar, it should be a little more simplified way of this particular speech. Please continue, Anirban. Thank you very much.
Okay. So where is your question? Can you is this on the layer, on the strategy part, or on the 3-tier architecture part? Will be good if you can explain that to me.
Well,
I have a question.
Sure.
My question is that what is the space utilization ratio of these companies in forming the cloud and in selling the space? I think my question is very clear that how much they are able to sell in percentage of their capacity to the various customers.
Okay. So if you saw over there initially the I'll go back to a few slides. So currently the space or the investment opportunity over here is 39 billion. And since people are moving from on-prem to the cloud, that's what the opportunity lies. And that's where some of the companies like AWS or any of the cloud service providers is picking up the money from the table actually.
Sir, I fully
No,
I fully agree, Dr. Kundu. The problem is मेरा ये पूछना है कि जैसे हमने मान लीजिए 100 MB की स्पेस क्रिएट करी और हमारी 40 MB बिकी, तो हमारा 40% कैपेसिटी यूटिलाइजेशन हुआ, तो वो पूछना है मेरे को कि हाउ मच इज द कैपेसिटी यूटिलाइजेशन.
Okay, so now, when I mentioned about the cloud and economies of scale, now instead of you purchasing say 100 MB of space, you just buy say 60 MB of space. And then if you need after say 2 days or 3 days, 40 more MB, you can get that dynamically. So you don't need to purchase in day one.
no.
As you go, you kind of purchase, and then so you are saving on your initial investment of not purchasing 100 MB, instead purchase 60 MB.
No, Mr. Kundu,
Yes.
probably this is not the question. Let me put the question in a different way. Suppose a hotel is having 100 room, okay? And
Right.
on an average, 40 rooms are occupied per day. So the occupancy is 50%. Similarly, suppose Amazon is having a database of 1 TB. Then just example, then how much percent of that cloud space available with the company is being utilized or being sold? This is the question.
So your question is, a hotel has 40 rooms.
100 room and 40 is occupied, means occupancy is 40%. For 40 rooms he is getting the revenue. Similarly, company must be having a huge capacity. Then how
Right.
much percent of that they are able to sell?
So right now, then you won't build a 100 capacity room. You will just build a 40 capacity room or take the infrastructure just for 40 rooms. And then say, as you see your customers are coming, you keep on adding one by one.
Okay, fine. So they keep the things in reserve.
Right. So Amazon and or say Microsoft or any cloud service provider is ensuring that if you need, we will provide you. And that's the reason these big companies have set up their data centers and ensuring that you don't need to buy rack space initially. We will provide as you go.
Okay, fine. Fine, thank you.
Okay.
Please continue.
So on that same lines, right, when I was saying rehost and then lift and shift, what I was talking, if I go little down to explain it in your terms, so instead of deploying in that in your local infrastructure, you just move it or take the space from Amazon and run it there. Now, what's the benefit of it is that now say if your users are increasing, you don't need to add racks at your end. Rather, Amazon will add on your behalf such that your applications are running continuously, and your applications, CPU need, as well as memory need, as well as storage need is met continuously, and you just get in click of a second actually. Okay. Next part is the re-platform part. So some of the strategies say Netflix did when they moved from their on-prem infrastructure to AWS, right? They basically moved few services, maybe just the database. They moved from on-prem onto the cloud, but they kept their business logic as well as the UI layer onto the on-prem. So this is basically iterative way of moving onto the cloud. And then another strategy is refactor or re-architect. What is that? Is that Salesforce application used to be a monolith. Means, what is a monolith? It's basically the whole application business logic is aggregated in one single deployment, right? Now, what it provides is that if your service fails, entire application goes down. Now, the current model is that break that application into smaller chunks, into smaller business chunks, so that you don't need to maintain a big software, but a smaller group of software or microservices, which is grouped based on their business functions. So that is also when you are moving to the cloud, you can do that or re-architect your infrastructure. What that happens is that, instead of a big room, you are dividing your room into smaller chunks so that you can isolate your failures to certain business group of functions. Another strategy is the repurchase strategy. So right now, some of the organizations these days say when you are logging into your laptop, you need to provide your company's username and password. Do you know how much investment a company does to secure your infrastructure? Then the whole infrastructure behind validating your username and password, a company used to spend millions. Right now, what they do is that you don't have that complete bit of team, but you give to companies like, say, Okta or Auth0, who will do this, who will take care of validating your users and their passwords, and you just pay a price for that. So your operating cost, or basically, business driver, as I said, agility, increases suddenly. And last but not the least strategy is the retirement strategy. Like, Netflix is something we all are using to stream movies. As I said, in 2007 and 8, they started moving from on-prem to the cloud. By 2017, 2018, they had completely migrated from on-prem infrastructure to the cloud. And then they were able to completely retire their on-prem or the IT infrastructure they had at their end. So these are some of the strategies that are being adopted by various companies to move from an on-prem infrastructure onto the cloud. Over the last 10, 12 years, we are hearing about cloud migration. Another important, these days, people are talking about being cloud native. Right? What I wanted to help you guys understand is that why cloud native is being considered as one of the strategies. So just to give you an example of over here, on your left-hand side, right, I will just point some arrow. So take this virtual, oops, my pen, okay. So on your left-hand side, right, this is the virtualization architecture, right? We moved on to the cloud, right? How cloud is providing you the service is that first you buy some hardware or bare metal, right, from HP or Dell. Then what you do as any of these cloud service providers like say Amazon or Google or Microsoft, they are doing is that you will have a host operating system, right? And then you have a hypervisor. Hypervisor is something, which is helping you virtualization of your memory, CPU, as well as your space. And then over and top, you have your, virtual machines. Now those virtual machines can have your operating system like Linux or Unix. And then finally, you will have your application running. Say you have developed any app right now. Over here, I've taken an example of a Node.js app. It could be a Java app or a Python app, right? I'm just trying to explain a developer workflow. A developer, what they will do is that they will develop in local. Maybe in local, you are running your Windows, but ultimately when you're trying to deploy in a cloud environment, right, your OS is different. So your development environment and your production environment is different. And then you need to do special things to kind of run your application, this Node.js application, within that virtual machine. And finally, somebody sitting over here is basically through a URL is hitting this particular application, and that's how they're able to see your application, which is developed in Node.js, right? So you can see over here for the server infrastructure part. So this is the amount of behind the scene, kind of infrastructure which is going. And just imagine if you have to replicate your application, like, suddenly you have a burst of, say, from 50 users who are using your application, suddenly you see there is 200 users. How do you, immediately, replicate your application so that you are able to cater to higher number of users? Right? So then you have to do special things over here. You have to write those scripts. You have to write those, virtualization methodology so that it can, scale at that level. So this is what, the virtualization technology does, or when you are moving to the normal from on-prem to the cloud, this is one part of it. But things have changed because we want to move out of IT and give more power to the developers. So now this whole new method of containerization has been brought up. So what it does is that again you have a bare metal or a rack of server running. Then again on top of it you have a host operating system running. This host operating systems are mostly Linux and Unix based operating systems. Then what you do is that you have a runtime engine. So what is this runtime engine doing is that it is giving the developer, the power to kind of, replicate their applications and basically scale up or scale down as the requirement comes. So now your Node.js application is basically boxed in the form of containers or images, and they are running in this runtime engine. And finally, this runtime engine is basically orchestrating these containers and finally running them as applications, such that when a user is hitting ultimately that URL, they are getting the same experience. But what it has done is that the scaling up, and the failure modes are kind of reduced now, because this is the runtime engine which is kind of taking care of of basically providing that necessary infrastructure to these applications. So this is again, this, moving to the cloud native world is basically a very modern way of going to the cloud, where you do not maintain your VMs. Now this VM infrastructure is completely removed, and you are only have to deal with the containers, because all these cloud service providers are now giving you a runtime engine, and you just focus about the business of your application, and you just deploy it within this runtime engine in a certain form, which is the containerized form, and then you can scale up your applications at a much faster rate. So just imagine, just to explain you a bit more over here. So say this VM and this Linux, right? So say AWS is providing, but somebody has to go and create those VMs, right? So say again, we moved from on-prem to the cloud, but these companies still have to maintain some bit of workforce to create this infrastructure. Ultimately, you are not maintaining this infrastructure, but to create that infrastructure, right? You still need some folks on your IT side. Now, if you go to the containerized world, you do not have to even maintain the VMs. It is the VM maintenance is being taken care by these cloud service providers. What you do is just deploy the apps, and you will be able to serve your customers better. Okay, I'll go to the next slide of why cloud native these days are more important. It's just not about going to the cloud. Also, how can you be cloud native? One of the important functionalities that cloud native provides is basically reconciliation. What does that mean? Very important concept. So your application is running within a virtual machine. It is very much possible, right? Your virtual machine can crash, and then your application will crash. Another example could be your virtual machine does not crash, but because of whatever that reason, maybe some garbage collection happened, your application completely crashed. So somebody has to go or have to keep a continuous check, right, whether your application is running continuously or not. But in a cloud native world, right, if you have said that I need my application running continuously, it is that runtime engine. Even if your application fails, it will spin up another application automatically. So you don't need to monitor your application state continuously. Rather, somebody else is doing it for you in an automated way. I mean, isn't it good? Like, automation is where everybody is trying to drive, and instead of monitoring your applications, you are giving it to this runtime engine, which is available in the cloud, right? As I said, now this reconciliation thing, like your application dies, it has been brought up again, right? So this has been done in an automated way, but you have the ability to control, okay, right now, if my application fails, immediately within 20 seconds or 30 seconds, I need to bring back my application. Even say right now I have say 50 users running, I have now 200 users running. I need more instances of application running within that infrastructure. That is being driven through configuration, and that's what cloud native is basically helping. And last but not the least is the development speed. So what you saw in the previous diagram of virtualization, right? You don't have to now maintain VMs. Maintaining your VMs in a safe and secure way needs time, and also needs specific expertise on your side. So now if you see over here, since you do not have even the VMs, rather than the runtime engine is handling all your, infrastructural, needs, as well as needs not only from a memory and CPU and storage perspective, whether there is a garbage fail, your application has crashed because of garbage failure or some other, for some other case, that runtime engine is taking care. So what is happening is that pushing of your application, or rather, moving the application's code to the production for any organization has reduced drastically. So that's, some of the benefits that cloud native is bringing in within this cloud migration journey. So if you see over here, I've just tried to portray our developers, workflow. So a developer is working within their, intelligent development environment, whatever be it, like say you have Visual Studio Code where you have written your, Node.js application. Now you push it to the build, right? You use any kind of, build software like Jenkins or TeamCity, something like that, and then it is pushed to a code repository. I'm assuming you have used some of the code repositories like GitHub, where your code is maintained in a secure way. Then either, once your application is going through various testing cycles, right? Now from Git only, from your source code management, you're doing your deployments directly into that, that runtime environment. So you can see over here, this whole process can be automated. Like only an engineer or a software engineer goes and write code. And then if you set up the necessary infrastructure, once you set it up, there is no human intervention. So your operations becomes more automated. And then when you talk about more automated, there is less chance of failure. There is less chance of failure of not monitoring your code, because ultimately your applications are kind of monitored within that runtime. And then if whatever say you need infrastructure, okay, that runtime engine will go and automatically add VMs and then scale your applications accordingly. Okay. So how is the job opportunity worldwide? I talked about various cloud service providers in this market, like AWS being the dominant one. Right now it is projected that there is huge amount of investment. Some of the data I found in the internet that around $900 billion investment is coming in this cloud computing world, and it is growing at at a higher pace. What is said is 16.4%. Job market in India is also very strong. There is the Indian cloud computing market is supposed to grow at 2.2 billion. Around 1 million jobs would be added in this particular sector in the next couple of years. So what I'm trying to say is that this cloud migration journey, which has been picked up by various companies, there is enough investment, and investment means there is enough job opportunity for you to pick up these skills and then get land up into jobs into these particular organizations. So this is again a huge chart which I don't want to go through it, but I wanted to show you what is the space looks like, right? So some of the key things that as students that you should be learning is any programming language, be it Node or Java or Python or Ruby. That is basically your quintessential to learn this any of these technologies, right? Then after that, you should learn something about server management. virtualization, because if you're just going in a standard cloud migration path, you need to create your VMs. Somebody is providing you those racks, but you have to create that environment, your networking infrastructure, then your, how much memory you need, right? Say somebody's talked about, hey, I need 100 megs, but I need to configure my system that right now I know my demand is 60 megs, but I should configure it in such a way that I can go up to say 100 megs. So that sort of knowledge you need to have, and how that is been acquired is through knowledge of some of the server management technologies like Linux, Unix, Windows, as well as virtualizations. Then after that, you come over here on the infrastructure as a service. So even in if you go to companies like AWS, ultimately what you are providing is basically through software, right? You are basically virtualizing your hardware infrastructure, and then through that virtualization mechanism, you are renting your space to somewhere else. So you need to know that that technology pretty well, right? And now these days, how your infrastructure is been rolled out is like infrastructure as a code. Like you have your racks, but what is the software sitting on there is also deployed through automation. So some of the technologies which you could learn and which is very hot, especially in the US market, is Terraform, CloudFormation, which is basically, you're running your infrastructure. You don't need to go and manually create your infrastructure. Rather, you basically, automate it through code. Similarly, you need to do VM management, your DB management, everything is basically done through code. And then last but not the least, I talked about that runtime, which is called as platform as a service, or PaaS, right? Some of the technologies which is getting very, very prevalent these days is Kubernetes, Docker, because Kubernetes is nothing but that that container orchestration engine, which helps you to scale up your application safely and securely. And then last part is the DevOps part, which I said that in this cloud migration world, right, or rather in the cloud world, your continuous integration and continuous delivery becomes very important. Like you need to know some of the technologies like Jenkins, Bamboo, TeamCity, Circle CI is another a Bay Area based company which is getting very traction these days, such that you as a developer develop the code and use these technologies to kind of push your application to your customers in a secure way, such that upgrades, software upgrade, you won't believe, for some of our software that we use to our customers. In previous days, we used to upgrade our software every 2 years. So we'll take the software, go to the customer environment, and then deploy it. Right now, with the cloud, we are pushing our infrastructure code in gap of just 2 weeks, from 2 years to 2 weeks. Can you imagine the scale? So this is done through automation and some of the GitOps technologies like GitHub, Jenkins, and Bamboo and Circle CI. So this, as students, you should try to pick up if you are interested about cloud computing, and it kind of encourages you about virtualization and all, how you can scale up your businesses, scale up your applications. Then some of these technologies is something you should pick up. Some of the learning opportunities, I would say, what I have done in my experience is that taken courses from Udemy. Also, I have practical experiences, but some of the these learning portals like A Cloud Guru or Pluralsight, even LinkedIn Learning, they provide specific or specialized cloud computing learning learning videos, and you can do any course from these. And one important thing, which if you want to master this cloud computing technology and help companies in their cloud migration journey, you should also do some certifications. It doesn't matter whether you are on Amazon cloud or Microsoft based Azure or Google cloud. The fundamentals are very much the same. It's ultimately there is a VM, then there is the networking layer, then there is the runtime layer, then your application layer. So after you learn it, you should do some certifications in any of these managed service providers, so that you gather more knowledge about these technologies. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I would end over here. It's almost the time. I would say, if you want to connect with me, here is my email address. Here is my LinkedIn. Any kind of help you think, or any kind of suggestion you need, feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to respond you back.
Thank you, Mr. Anirban. So now, audience, all the participants who are here, if they have any question, please ask one by one. Yes, please, sir. Please.
Sir,
Hi.
sir,
Yes.
my
Boliye.
sir, I am R.K. Khetan. I am speaking from Gwalior. My basic question is that what is the legacy of the cloud storage? I mean, there may be so many aspects. The secrecy, the legacy. Legacy means if somebody dies or there is a fighting between the two firms, the firm is split into two parts and they claim the data. Both of them claim data. So how do these conditions are overcome in an international system, and how long the data is being stored without payment? Because if the payment is stopped, then how much time, for how long time the data is kept stored? These are some basic questions. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so your first question was, some two organizations are fighting, and then they are the same organization, they're splitting who owns the data, and how that data is kind of ensured that it's been split across the two parties. And then how do you ensure that it is within that region? Was that you are trying to go towards that?
Secrecy
of that data, right? Yeah. So secrecy of that data. So obviously, some of these companies who are moving to the cloud, they do have some fear about they are losing the control of the data. It's a very good question. That's also the reason you will see, other than the banks, right? Most companies are going to the cloud, but banks are still holding on to their on-prem infrastructure, because as a company you lose the authority to keep the data on your side, because data is quintessential, right? So some of the things which I have seen in my experience, and I have also written contracts for some of our vendors. So the vendors are putting very stringent contractual commitments that if Guideware is owning the data through AWS, the clients are asking for that data on a daily basis. Okay, one part is that. Another part is that the data which is sitting, like you talked about the secrecy of that data. The data, there is a concept of encryption at rest. So what it does is that when the data is sitting on your storage, it's automatically encrypted. Now, the key to encrypt that, the master key, is owned by the customers. So the secrecy, say if Guideware through AWS is managing, say Aviva Italy's data, we cannot, even if we like Guideware won't do that, but even if we steal that, we won't be able to decipher, because the key is stored at at the customer's end. That is one part. Okay. Your second question, what was the second part of your question? I forgot.
The second part is that if the payment is not made, how long the company will hold the data? Because sometimes a person or the owner dies and his legal heirs, they are not able to trace. And if they come after 5 years, and sometimes we also see that the data is spoiled. Spoiled means just like a cold storage, कि हम कहते हैं कि अब वो टेम्परेचर कम हो गया, आलू सड़ गया. So I mean to say, what is the legal situation and what is the ethical situation in such cases?
Okay. So जैसे आपने बोला कि डेटा को कितने टाइम तक स्टोर किया जाएगा, वो डिपेंड करेगा आपने क्या कॉन्फ़िगर किया है. अगर आपने बोला है कि मेरे डेटा को 7 साल तक आपको रखना है, तो क्लाउड प्रोवाइडर विल एंश्योर दैट your data is safe and secure for the next 7 years. ठीक है, ये एक पार्ट है. And it can be anything, 7, 10, 15, 20, 25, anything. It depends. आप क्या चाहते हो. बट अगर आप 25 साल के लिए चाहते हो, तो आपको उस टाइम के लिए तो you need to pay for that, right? But you don't need to pay upfront, because say just imagine if you are taking copies of your data on a regular basis. अगर आप ऑन प्रेम में होते तो आपको स्टोरेज स्पेस इंक्रीज करना पड़ता. अभी आपको बस बोलना है कि मेरे को इतने साल के लिए चाहिए. द क्लाउड सर्विस प्रोवाइडर विल एंश्योर, ऑब्वियसली दे विल टेक अप, दे विल चार्ज फॉर यू, बट इट इज नॉट दैट मच एज कंपेयर टू आपको एक हार्डवेयर रैक लाना पड़ेगा, फिर आपको स्टोरेज सिस्टम सेटअप करना पड़ेगा. दैट इज वन थिंग. And another thing, what you said, that hey, somebody does not pay about their through their licensing fee, what is that that the cloud service provider will do? So these are, I mean, if you're talking from a very small scale perspective, right, you are maintaining your own software or your own infrastructure in AWS. That is something you may forget, but generally, big firms like Salesforce or ServiceNow or even say Guidewire, we won't forget, because we have a big team to kind of handle that. And even if you forget, like say as a personal, as an individual user onto the cloud, they have certain grace period around 3 months of 90 days, where they will keep it, and obviously they will keep you sending emails, notifications. If you don't respond, ultimately they will delete your data. Okay.
From participants. Yeah. There was a question related to certification. You have already answered that Azure certification can help to get job in cloud industry as fresher.
Right. So definitely, Azure certification or AWS certification will definitely help you as a fresher, because these days, when I started my career in the IT industry, I was an electrical engineer, and when I landed, I did not know anything about it, like HTML body. I didn't understand why we were writing that. 15 years has passed. Now the industry has changed. Even for like when we are hiring freshers within our organization, we at least expect that that person knowing some bit of cloud technologies, so that when that person comes in, he or she is able to gel with the team and run fast. So obviously, as a fresher, if you do a certification, it will definitely help your chances of cracking the interview, because ultimately you are faced with these questions. Then after you pass the interview, you have to do the job. To kind of help you in the job, Azure certifications will definitely help.
Any other question from participants? So thank you, Mr. Anirban. There is no question for excellent, wonderful lecture. And this was the recent question which I have asked was from Mr. Vikas Rajput. So he has acknowledged that he got the answer. So thank you all the participants, particularly Mr. Anirban Kundu, who took a pain to deliver this lecture from USA. Probably it is midnight in USA. And we have with us Mr. Khetan from Institution of Engineers, Gwalior chapter, Dr. Manish Dikshit, Chairman, Secretary, IEEE MP subsection. So I welcome all of them. Thank you for joining us. So thank you, and thanks to Mr. Rahul Dubey for coordinating this activity and doing all these things. So thank you, everybody. So now the meeting is concluded. We are close. We are at the end. So thank you, Mr. Anirban. Now you may log
Thank you.
out. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Singhal.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day all. Bye.
Thank you.
अरे सर सिंगल सर हेलो